Yeah. No, yeah, that's kind of what she said. One of the great. What's up, everybody? Make sure everyone's. I bet you everyone will watch this one because everyone wants to know how to get faster.
Well, good. That's why I brought my
Everybody, right?
No.
I want to know how to get faster. I'm
say,
37.
I want to know.
All right, we're good. We'll give it 30 seconds or a minute. People are piling in. Make sure it's recording. Let's see. Can you guys hear us just fine? I imagine you can. Use the chat box real quick. Can you guys hear us just fine? Sweet, yeah. All right, let's do it. Well, hey everybody, welcome again to our special guest edition on Sundays. We always have a special guest to talk about something of value to, well, both of us and all of you. It can be something to do with athletics. It can be about faith. It can be about a lot of different things. And today we have a great blend of both of those things with one of my very best buddies, Dr. Ray Martinez. Don't forget the doctor, okay? I'm joking. He would never even ask you to do that. But just an awesome friend. But as I've gotten to know Ray, I've just really appreciated. We've had a lot of conversations about both faith and his childhood and his upbringing, and then a lot of athletic things because he's a coach at heart. He's a professor of exercise science. Is that what you call it? Sure. And a department head. Yep. At Winona State University. So he is very intelligent on these topics, and he has a great, he has a knack for breaking it down to very, very easy to understand for everybody. And speed is one of those things we all want to get better at, get faster. Speed kills, right? In any sport, speed kills. So even in cross country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speed kills.
It does.
Those Weezer boys are like,
Yeah, love it.
Anyway, so without further ado, Ray, welcome.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. So let's just kind of, like with every special guest, just getting to know you a little bit. Where are you from? Tell us about, your early childhood years, because most of our viewers are ages 7 to 19, I think is the oldest right now.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Yeah, so we have a good range. So
That's a great range. Well, hey everyone, I'm excited to be here. I am a professor at Winona State, like Brandon said. I live in Holman, Wisconsin. I'm a track and field coach there at the high school. I've been doing that for the last 9 years. Coached track and field for 26 years, and developing speed has been my passion through all that. I've learned a lot, and there's a lot of experts that are out there. And what I want to leave you with today at some point is a little formula you can use. It's real simple, but if you use it, you're going to get faster. So I'll help you with that. But a little bit about my background. I'm originally from California. I grew up in Santa Rosa, California, born in San Francisco. My mom was really young, 16, 17, when she had my sister and myself. They divorced, and when I was about 4 or 5, and but didn't know any different. And they divorced. My stepdad came into the picture, and we ended up moving from California to Janesville, Wisconsin. We thought we'd stay there about a year. We had a job opportunity there, and we stayed there until I was 15. Then moved back to California. Thought we got to get back to our relatives. Stayed there 1 year because we missed Wisconsin. Really did miss the Midwest. Came back, finished up my high school career, playing football, wrestling, track, and then went to UWL, played football in my years there, became a teacher and a coach, and then went down to Texas from there. And everything down in Texas was crazy. Everything's big in Texas. It was, the athletes down there in their middle school years really determined whether or not they were going to continue to go forward. And it's crazy. Look at the NFL draft that just happened the last couple of days in the South. But there's a lot of things that we can do up here to help our athletes too. Taught for a couple of years, then went back and got my master's in human performance, and then got my doctorate in exercise science. But and now I started speed training and coaching with my son, who was a stud athlete at Holman High School and went on, got a walk-on offer with the Badgers. And the reason why he got that walk-on offer, he was at their camp and all the skill things he was doing for speed. And then he ran his 40 and they said, we've got something here. But Duluth came along and they also offered him an opportunity to start playing right away. And he did, played for 2 years there, had a hip injury and stopped playing. But you know, one of the things that was his claim to fame is, as well was his speed and the things that he focused on. So, and he's a speed coach in his own right too. So with that being said, I wanted to jump back real quick. I didn't have a real big faith life through California. Wasn't until I was around 9, I started going to church. At 12, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior at a camp in Chautauqua, Wisconsin. Went through high school, and I can't say I always stood close to the Lord. I kind of fell away, even though we went to church, but just started living the life of a high school kid and then college as well. But I met my soon-to-be wife when I was student teaching. And from there, we decided, are we going to live a life for Christ, or are we going to live a life that is of man? And we decided to follow Christ. And we brought up 2 great kids with their and a tremendous faith life. And we're just blessed by them and blessed by God and blessed by Jesus. But also get to do this crazy thing called sports and exercise and fitness and sport performance. And I'm loving that. So that's a real quick and dirty of my background.
Yeah, yeah. Someone's just stopping someone's video real quick. Cool. So we'll bounce around from faith, speed,
Great.
speed, faith.
Yeah.
So one question that I always ask about speed is you hear like you're either born with it or you're not. And I've even heard some people say you can't make a slow person fast, you can only make them less slow. So can speed be taught? Can it be learned? How's, you know, for all these athletes of varying abilities, you know, yeah, what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I think, yes, you can get faster, but you have to know how to do it. And there are too many coaches who don't follow a formula about how to get their athletes faster. They kind of just do the same old thing. So they try to use conditioning as a way to get faster, and then no one ever gets faster. So then they say, well, I guess I'm not fast. And that's not true. Case in point, probably in 2000, I think it was 2017, our 4x1 team didn't have the best athletes that year, but we had some really good athletes. My son was one of them on that relay, but I needed to find a third person or a fourth person on the 4x1. And on that 4x1 relay team, because we won state a couple years ago. We had place winners every year, but this year just happened to be one of those years where maybe a little bit off. The reason why I'm telling the story is our leadoff leg was a lineman, and he actually was a tight end type body, 6'2", about 195, 200 pounds, maybe about 205. But he was our tackle on the football team. And so I said, I'm going to work with you. And I remember this. To answer your question, he said to me, he goes, can I get faster? And I said, I'm absolutely going to help you get faster. He went from a 12.2 to about 11.6. That's a pretty good jump and pretty good drop for a lineman who didn't do a lot of sprint work. And the other kids picked up the speed. My son was about 11 flat, 10.9 kid. Then we had a couple others who were helping around them. Well, I told them, we're going to state. That was at the beginning of the year. So kind of casting that vision, we're going to state. And so he said, all right. So we did all the stuff. We made it to regionals. We got through, we got third. We went to sectionals. I think we got third even in sectionals. It's because it's the top 3. And then we went to state. We're thinking, and we made it. And I remember him coming up to me and he said, Coach, I just want you to know, I never believed that we were going to go to state, but here we are with 16,000 people at the stadium. And I was like, this is great. Now, I do know this too, is I'm thinking, okay, we're in the semis here. We're all going to run and see what happens at prelims. We run the prelims, and I said, you guys just got to run with your hair on fire. Just lay everything out. And the big competition, you're going to rise up. And they ran it, and we're watching for our times. in our heat, and there's 2 other heats. And then when it finally came down, it was the top 10 make it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, we knew we're in top 4, and 5, 6, 7, and like, I'm not sure, and 8 and 9, like, oh no, and 10, Holman. We made it to the finals. So here's a kid who didn't believe he can get faster. He makes it, we make it to the finals. We run the finals and we get 7th. 7th in the state, in the biggest conference in the state. So when we look at these kids, they all got faster. And here's what I will say, let someone say, well, how fast can I get? What I have found is that if an athlete works really, really hard, they're going to be able to take off 3/10 to 6/10 off their 100 time. So that's 100 time. So we're looking at 40s are going to be a little bit different, but it takes a lot to get there. And how you train is going to factor in. So can you get faster? Yes. I just wanted to share a story with it because to me, even though we won it a couple years later, won the whole enchilada, is that I think that was one of my favorite years because we had to work. It wasn't the gifted and talented group. It was a group that really had to put the speed training down and make it work. And the rest is kind of history because we've gone on. I think my brother told me with our group that over the 5, 6 years we were there, we were in the finals 5 years in a row. No one's done that.
Wow. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
So sounds like you were a pretty influential coach. Can you think of somebody like when you were growing up, did you have a coach or somebody in your life that was really influential for you and kind of helped you kind of take those steps as an athlete?
Yeah, I think that part of my area of expertise is in exercise science, but also physical education training. So I train teachers and then coaching and exercise physiology, biomechanics, those kinds of things. So I really enjoy that. When I knew I wanted to be a teacher, a physical education teacher and coach in the 7th grade because of the great role models I had who were my physical education teachers. And they're not gym teachers. Gym is a space. Physical educators are people who educate through the physical. My little plug. But anyway,
I like it.
but I just had some great men and women in my life, and I thought I like what they do. Plus, I love sport, and I'm thinking, what can I do for the rest of my life where I can dress like this, and I can tell my current students, I've dressed like this since I was 4 or 5 years old, and now here I am, 55 years old, and I'm still dressing in sweats. High school coach, he actually was a great role model for me as well. Football, wrestling coach, and really enjoyed what he brought to the table. I actually just got a chance to induct my brother into the Janesville Hall of Fame in wrestling. And I was a Hall of Fame inductee a number of years ago in Janesville. And it was cool because the coaches who were there were all people that I just had loved and adored because they poured into you. And I think any coach that will take time to pour into you is a unique person. And I just realized that I also wanted to give back at some point in time to, because of the men and women that helped me in my life get to where I wanted to go. I want to help athletes get to where they want to go too. And not just the high-end athletes. I love working with that kid who kind of looks just kind of awkward and say, hey, come over here, let me help you a little bit. And real quick story there, we were at a junior high, a little JV meet at Onalaska High School, and there was a kid that was running about 15 seconds. That's not great in the 100, but he ran a race after we were working, and he ran about a high 13.9. So 15 seconds to 13.9, and he was walking. I said, hey, congratulations, you walked. And he'd walk by me, and then he turned around and walked back. He goes, Coach, I can't believe it. You made me faster. So to answer your question again, is speed also is in the eye of the beholder. If someone realizes I just got faster, it's great. And the question comes is faster in what? Faster for because there's things you can do with what I'm going to talk to you about later in wrestling that can help you be, how do you plant that foot in the ground on that double leg takedown? If you can do that and do it effectively, you've just created speed so then you can penetrate to that guard and get that takedown. Or if it's someone who's in baseball, how do I get down the path and how you force development there, turning your hips and get going. What does that look like? How should it look like? Football lineman, what's your first step? And that first step comes with force development. How do you generate that force to create that first step? And just a little aside, I'm good friends with the coaches up in Caledonia, and they focus on speed development, force production, how they move their bodies in space. And every single year when they win the state championship, which is an amazing run and the things that they do up there, the other teams are just so amazed that these kids from a small little town, how fast they are on the field of play. And if you go up there, they're not these Neanderthals. They are just your average Joe up there. And you look at them like, really? And then you watch them play like, really? So that's pretty cool in that regard. So these, all these people I've surrounded myself with to help out. So interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Great.
Work, man. They put in the work.
Yep.
They put in the work, and so are all the kids in this program. And that's why, you know, it's just kind of really validating, hopefully for you, it's like reinforcing what you're doing. So you talk about force development in the context of a strength and speed program. How does a kid, you know, speak it in their terms, what it means to enhance their force development and what that means for their speed and you know, like we're doing a strength program. Kind of explain that.
Yeah. Well, let me back up just for a quick second. And I'm a little older, obviously, with regard to timelines, but Dan O'Brien was an Olympic champion in decathlete. And a number of years ago, I went to the Wisconsin Track Coaches Association conference, and I listened to, he was there as their guest speaker. And one of the things that he said, and it was fun to watch him because look at all the 10 different events he has to do. And he said these words, and it's something I want you to hear too. He said, as soon as I learned how to put force into the ground in every event that I have, that's when I became a better athlete. And so the way you create force into the ground is you have to either lift and create some dynamic with lifting, but you have to do it in such a way that your technique is sound, because you have to create force in the muscles, but also you have to develop a nervous system that can fire quickly. So you can lift weights, but at some point in time, with how do you generate with those weights is you got to transition from that strength to that power. And there's something going on there, but in order to have power, which is that force development, you have to have strength. In order to have strength, you have to actually do something that's going to create an overload. So I think the coaches here have been kind of helping you with that one. I'll jump in here real quick with what I want to teach you, but because it's going to come into all areas. But Brandon has learned this his whole life. When he's teaching, it's called the FIT principle: frequency, intensity, time, and type. And the reason why I'm bringing this into for you right now is that's something I want you to think about. I'm going to also make it fit into the other areas. But frequency is how often are you lifting? What are the things that you're doing to create a physique that you're looking for, or force development through the strength and conditioning program that you're going through, especially if you're doing any of this kettlebell and the hex. So I'm looking over here and I see a hex bar, squat. How do you do that? How often are you doing that? The I is intensity. And that just basically, if you don't create an overload, you're not going to get better in everything that you do, especially in resistance training. So if you're someone that you know you can lift 100 pounds, you've got to start working until you get to 105, 110. But if you're only lifting at 70 pounds, your body's saying, I know this, so I'm not going to do anything. And the reason why that intensity is so important is that your nervous system, and this is the thing that most coaches don't teach, is your nervous system is the first line that tells your muscles what to do. Their nervous system is also that thing. So I'm looking at these, if you look at your cords at your house, from your light bulb to the socket, when the cord itself, if there's a little fray in it, you're not going to get that impulse that you're going to need to get to the muscle. So even though you plug it into the outlet, when that nerve or when the impulse runs through that cord, if it hits that little spot where it's just not functioning right, you're going to get sputtering of the lights. And that means you're not going to get the firing of the muscle that you're going to need. So then what you're going to do is you're going to go say, I want to make that better. So I'm going to get some black tape, and I'm going to electrician's tape, and I'm going to put some tape over that. The reason why I bring that analogy up is every time you lift and you lift correctly, you're actually creating a whole black tape around your nervous system, all the way from your brain to your muscles. And the thicker that becomes through training, it becomes thicker. That's going to allow your body to send an impulse faster to the muscles. So now your muscles will fire quicker. So it's a nervous system change that creates the change for your muscles. Real quick, and this is something that's kind of interesting, is I've asked students recently, how many of you have inline skated? I see Brooks is over there. There are so many kids who've never inline skated before, and they said, what's inline skating? Okay, rollerblading, roller skating. The first time, if you've never done it, you put it on, you really jerky. And because you're out of balance, you don't know what that feels like. But the more you do it, you start to become more streamlined. And after a while, you're like, wow, I can do this. Your muscles really didn't change. It was your nervous system that realized, okay, these are the things that I have to do. Now, once I understand what I'm supposed to do correctly, then I'm going to fire better. But now, there's the rub. Most coaches will take this, going back to your force production point, and they'll look at it and say, hey, you're able to inline skate. In this case, you're able to run. I'm going to take the speed here for a second. Because you're able to run, I'm not going to coach you in running anymore. And there's the problem. If I don't train, and this is where I work on it, if you don't know the mechanics of running well, your body will move and kind of flail. You've seen people going like this before, running like this, and like they're wasting all this energy. But if you watch athletes who just look like a duck on water, they're just moving along, but the legs are going like crazy, right? They're just gliding, and that's when you know you're on the right path. And so if we can train the nervous system while using resistance training, while using kettlebells well, because that trains the whole backside in posterior chain, you can create force development. But the nervous system has to be trained properly, and that comes back to mechanics. If you don't train the mechanics, it's hard to generate the force because your body doesn't know how to do it. It only will do what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
And if you tell it to do the things correctly, then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So when we're asking you, when you guys are doing your workouts and we're like, hey, send the videos, so we can see your technique and we can give you that feedback, it's exactly what Ray's talking about right now. Because if your technique is it's off, if it's not producing what we're looking for out of that strength movement or that power movement that we're doing, we're kind of defeating the purpose a little bit. We're creating these little frays in those wires rather than creating that electrical tape around it, because we want to see good movement patterns. Because when you have good movement patterns, when you start playing your sport, you're going to go, holy cow, I can jump faster. Holy cow, I swiped the bag. I never used to be able to steal. You know, I'm thinking of hockey references, but I'm not good at the hockey game.
It's funny you brought that up. As I've kind of gone through training and college and pro, throughout the years, you find that the faster guys off the ice are the faster guys on the ice. So there's obviously some direct correlation with running and getting fast and that carrying over onto the ice. So it was kind of cool, your analogy with the inline skating, you know, moving correctly and getting that speed out of it. So,
and there's actually I was just telling this to Brandon as well, and I'll read it this way first because I can't read backwards, but it says this on the shirt. This was given to me by the girls who went to the state track meet last year. That was their goal too, and here's what they gave me, and I know why they gave it to me. I'll read it to you first. It says, if at first you don't succeed, try doing what your coach told you what to do the first time. And so getting those videos, I still have some athletes in college, went from high school to college. They still are sending me their videos. Coach, can you just, they'll send it to me, I'll look at it, break it all down, coach, please. And I'll break it all down, and I'll send it back. My son was actually in New York. He just come back from Europe with he and his wife, and they were staying with a friend who was working at a Division I strength and conditioning and speed development program. And the athletes were sending their footage of their 40s to this coach that my son knows. And his friend said, hey, can you look at this, Dylan? And Dylan looked at it, and these are guys who were trained for the 40 combine that were already paying coaches thousands of dollars to help them in their 40 combine. And Dylan looked at it and he said, well, this and this and this has to change. And his friend looked at him and said, you know what? I never even would have seen that. And it's some little things that Dylan picked up that he used for his speed development that realized, whoa, and this is what helped him when he went to the Badgers to focus on that. So no matter what your sport is, you can always get faster. And part of that getting faster is how you develop that nervous system. And that nervous system, there's a whole bunch of science behind it, but here's what it comes down to. If you do it correctly all the time, your nervous system will adjust to that and make that technique even better and faster. And so, for example, sprinting, and I'm going to finish my fit because frequency, intensity, time, how often is that frequency, intensity, is how hard you do it. That time is what's the duration. Here's also the problem that coaches have. And don't go to your coach, whoever might be someplace else, and say, you're doing it all wrong because Dr. Martinez, you're doing it wrong. I'm just telling you the things that are out there in the coaching world that are saying these are the things that are done wrong. Too many coaches try to condition their athletes into speed, and you can't do that. Speed is developed with between 5 and 7 seconds of all out effort. 5 to 7 seconds of all out effort. If you want to get faster, you have to run 5 to 7 seconds or skate 5 to 7 seconds as hard as you can go, as fast as you can go, because your nervous system is trying to put the layering that we're talking about on your nervous system. And if you do that, then you also got to do this. If you go 5 to 7 seconds, basically every second is about how long you got to rest per minute. So if you go for a 50-yard run, it takes you 5 seconds. I mean, a little bit less than that, or more than that for most of you, but except for these two, they're really fast. You need to rest for 5 minutes. Or if you go for 7 seconds, you need to rest for 7 minutes, because your body has to get all the energy back that it needs for your next bout. And then you only do that 2 to 3 times. 2 to 3 times a week, 3 times a week. And that's going to help you. Now you say, well, is that it? No, there's a little bit more. That comes back to the mechanics. And if your mechanics are where you're stomping down the thing, you can go stomping down the thing 5 to 7 seconds and really not be where you want to go. And then the last one on that, Chief, frequency, intensity, time, and type, is what are all the different things that you are doing to help you with your speed development or strength development. So you're not going to just do kettlebells, you're not going to do just hex bars. You're going to go do some other things. You're going to do push pulls. You do all kinds of different kinds of programming that's going to help you with front side, back side, those kind of pieces. So frequency, intensity, time, and type are a little rule you're going to use to help you in the strength training world. But it also is going to help you in your spiritual world. And I'm going to jump into this real quick. If we look at the FIT principle, it also has so many more applications to other areas in your life. So frequency, intensity, time, type, nutrition. How often are you eating? Intensity, it comes down to is what kinds of foods are you eating? How many calories? You don't want too intense where it has so many calories that you're putting on body fat. At the same time, you can't have under calories. So frequency, intensity, time, when are you eating? Especially if you're working out, you need to eat within that first 30 minutes to 60 minutes after you've worked out really, really hard. Because if you don't, you're not replenishing the system the way it needs to. So those cells need that. And then that type is also another thing is duration, but also that type is what are the different types of food that you're eating. And you need to have greens, you need to have vegetables, and you need to have fruits. Those are very, very important. And I'd like to use this analogy. If you have a really nice looking car, maybe it's a Jaguar that's sitting out in the parking lot, and it's all full of really great octane gas. But if you don't have the spark plugs in it, it's not going to go anywhere. And the spark plugs are your vitamins and minerals coming from your fruits and your vegetables and they have to be clean. They can't be all gunked up. So if they're clean, as soon as that you start that engine and then you have that spark that comes off, it's going to use that fuel, whether it's fats, carbohydrates, proteins. So when that spark goes off, it's going to hit that chamber and it's going to create that power that your body's going to need. Most of you high school kids, and I just know this because I've been around you long enough, is you're eating Cheetos, you're eating hot dogs and hamburgers, you're eating junk that's not refueling your cells, rather getting quality proteins, getting quality, and you can buy some pretty good stuff at the store that can help you replenish yourself. Too many athletes, though, think that I don't really need to eat these greens. If you don't eat those greens, here's a quick, easy cellular component, biological component of it. Your cells right now, inside there is where all the vitamins and minerals and the vitamins are going to work their chemistry. They're going to fire. If they're not in there enough, they don't fire enough, and then the fuels that are trying to be used in that cell aren't going to be able to be used effectively. But the more vitamins and minerals you have in there, it's going to be like that spark plug that's going to create that breakdown of the fast carbohydrates and glucose for your energy. And if you do that well, then the fats and the carbohydrates and the protein that you're going to use will work more effectively. So that's where that FIT principle. One other one for the FIT principle is, and this goes back to my faith life, maybe yours too, but frequency. How often are you reading the Bible? I read it every single day. I've read the Bible last year all the way through, and now I started through the book or through the New Testament. So this morning I'm reading through Romans, and I just read one chapter a day. That's going to take me through almost the end of the year. Then I'm going to jump back into Psalm. But if we don't stay close to Jesus, and the way you stay close to Jesus is getting into the Word, because those are His words that He wants us to know. So frequency, intensity, is it just something, okay, I read this real quick, I read the passage, you walk away, why don't you even read? Be focused while you're reading it. And if you don't want to read a chapter, read a couple verses, look at it, understand what it's telling you. So frequency intensity, how much time? Figure out a time in your life that makes sense. So in the morning is my time. My Bible's right next to my bed. As soon as I wake up, I grab it and I start reading it. Pray as well. And then as far as your time with Jesus is, what's that last one? That type is just, what are the different ways? Are you jumping on something like this? What are you watching? What are the things you're doing? Are you watching some good shows? Are you discussing things with friends? Are you going to church? Finding that way so you have variety. That's that modality piece. Frequency, intensity, time, and type. So we look at our speed development. I mentioned two or 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I mentioned the intensity, different type of time that you need. You got to really focus on that. We live in a world that the less is good, more is better. That is the opposite for speed development. So 5 to 7 seconds, rest 5 to 7 minutes, do another 1, another 2, and then ask somebody to look at your form. You do that 3 days a week, and then add some resistance training pieces. You've really made that more beneficial for you. So
We gotta make some
Yeah,
adjustments.
yeah, absolutely.
So we're learning right now too. We're learning right now too, because speed is something that it's interesting. It's not taught very well. All the way up through the collegiate, as an athlete and then as a coach, it was never taught. Strength is taught very well, but like how to teach someone to move efficiently through those mechanics of speed and running, not very well. I wish, and when Orion and I came up with this program, this curriculum, we thought to ourselves, what are all the things that we wish we would have known in regards to training, nutrition, leadership, faith, all those things that we're delivering to you guys. And speed's one of them. So how can we help them with some basic techniques, some basic cues when it comes to running? Because every Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing speed work. Okay. We need to provide more rest in our speed. We're already learning, like, oh, that's awesome. Now we can tweak our programming a little bit. So what are some basic cues that we can give them when they're sprinting so they can kind of go, okay, it's easy to remember, and they can remember like how to use their arms, how to drive in their knees and toes.
So let me help you with a couple things. First of all, what you're going to do.
Feel free if you want to, like.
Yeah, and I might throw this out here in a second. But first off is, if you're looking at speed, there's always a start component to it. And so I'm going to give you 3 little cues, and then I'll come back to some mechanics. But if it's, let's just say it's a 60 meters, 40 meters, 100 meters. Push out. What I mean by pushing out is that you got to get your center of mass. So if I'm standing up, and I think you got me right here. If I'm standing up, if I'm just standing right here, my center of mass is right over my feet, I'm not going anywhere. As soon as I get it out here, and I'll use this as a little visual, but as soon as my center of mass comes out here, if I'm out here, I want to start taking a step. And so that's going to be the key, is I need to make sure that when I first start out is I'm pushing out. And what am I pushing out? I'm pushing out my center of mass out. And that's why I want to that gets me down the track. As I'm pushing out, then as I get about, it's going to be about 15 to 25 meters, then you want to push tall. And pushing tall means I'm going to put my foot in the ground. That's that force development. By the way, when I push out, I'm force development, so I'm pushing out. When I push tall, it's force development, I'm pushing up. And I want to push up because I'm going to glide more over the ground contact, and I'm going to be able to create more what's called stride length. And then at the very end, I want to push relaxed. So I'm still pushing, but I'm teaching my body how to relax. And this is going to be more for the 60 to 100 meters, because the more you mash, so if you see me, you come out and see, but if I'm really clenching, I slow down. It forces your body to slow down. You want to learn how to relax. So push out, push tall, push relaxed. Okay, so there's that piece. As far as the mechanics are involved, you're going to hear, how do you run with your arms? And so when I'm looking at my arms, one of the things I'm looking at is, and this is where I see too many kids. They're running, but they're beating the drums. So they're running like this, and they think they're going fast, but from here, from the elbow to the hand, it's just going straight down. But if you notice, my elbow isn't creating any shoulder mobility. My elbow should be swinging back and forth here, so my hand's coming up here. If I'm doing this and I'm coming back here, my hand is clearing my hip, but I'm really looking at the elbow. I want to see is my elbow getting high back here. So that's going to be that key as I'm running. If for coaches or for you, if you're coaching your friend, and by the way, when I coach track, I coach all the athletes to coach each other. So I tell them what they're going to do, show them what they're going to do, and then I tell them to watch somebody else do it and then help them through it back and forth. Because during the track meet, there are times when I'm seeing athletes way far away helping them with their mechanics. So same thing here. So if you can see this right here, I have my arm right here. I'm going to lock this. Ellie heard this up in Caledonia. They do some things like that. The whole goal for this one right here, this is really slow if it's way down here, and this is really fast. So that's what we're looking at here. And as we get here, we know that is with our hands. For our feet, here's the whole key with this one, is if I'm standing here, I want to feel like I showed this to Brandon a while ago, I should feel like I'm moving forward and my heels are just coming off a little bit, and that's the position your body wants to be in. As your foot comes through to run, you're going to come here, it's going to come down, but here, when it goes back, it should only go to about right here. And this toe, you can see in it, it needs to be flexed. So this is called plantar flexion, this is called dorsiflexion. So when it comes through, it needs to be plantar flexed and pulled up right away. Too often kids will do this, they'll plant, and then they'll do this. It's called casting back, and it's called long backside mechanics. You want short backside mechanics, so this is going to be what it's going to look like. It's going to come. If it comes back here, we're in trouble, because then what will happen is as your foot comes through, it'll slap down right here, rather than being tall, come here, and now I'm traveling. And so if we have our arms in place, and I just work with an athlete like this. If you notice right now, you can see me bounce a little bit. And if I'm going sideways, I want to see that bounce. So you can work this for 5-10 seconds and just have them relax with that one. But if you're doing this correctly, you're on the right track. Now, where are your hands? So now you're looking at me straight on. As my hands come through, they're going to come just outside midline. This is midline of your body. And they're going to not be out here. This elbow is going to be back, coming back just to about chin or nose height. Then it's going to come back. Then it's going to come forward. Then it's going to come back. If you're doing these things, you're on the right track. If it's this, that's really, really slow. And what will happen when someone is really competing, let's say that us three are trying to get to the finish line, and I'm behind these two because they're ahead of me right now. If I realize that, oh, I got to squeeze more, what will happen is their arms will get longer, their stridings will get longer. When your stridings get longer, you put your foot out in front of your center of mass, and it breaks you. And then you're going to slow down. And so then I say, just relax, just relax. And that's those are some of the keys to sprint mechanics.
What are some good, so we do a dynamic warm up, a quick one before our workouts. What are some good 2 or 3 drills that we can do that we can add to our program to have them do after like their slow, less dynamic world?
Yep.
We can speed it up and do some like speed drills.
Yep. And I'll break this down for you guys a little bit more later, but I'm going to give you a couple key things right here, because there are some things that you can do to make sure. Probably the best thing you can do is marches, because marching, when I'm marching, that's basically sprinting. And so if I can fast march, I can do all kinds of marches. Or if I can just go easy mechanics, so they can see what that feels like. But if you can get somebody to fast march, and then if you notice right now, I'm pushing tall. So I'm pushing tall, pushing tall. You as a coach should see their heads bobbing. If you see this, nothing's moving, that means your body down here is absorbing into the ground, and you're not going to be that fast. Mm-hmm. So an A march is going to be a key factor, into an A run, into an A skip.
Yep.
But don't do this. And B's, if you're doing it, I don't know if they are or not, but if they're going to get rid of it. The reason why B's doing this, you cast out and you're teaching breaking. Okay. So the B's, but also your body, it's not a natural act, because your body wants to save itself, so it'll bring its foot right back under.
Gotcha.
Those are the keys.
Okay. Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Learning a lot.
Hey, the program just got better. How about that? Be on the lookout for a couple of those additions into the program. Yeah, anything?
No, yeah. It's awesome stuff.
It is. I'm just soaking it up, and I'm glad we record this because we can go back and take notes. Multi-sport athletes. Want your chair back?
No, I'm gonna do we're gonna talk multi-sports, I'm gonna show something.
Okay, so, in a day and age where kids think they need to focus on one sport, or even two sports, which is cool, right? But, not everyone is from La Crescent. This program is actually, you having lived in Texas, we got kids in Texas.
Yeah.
It's in Colorado. So there's kids all over the place. And I know in some bigger areas, they experience more pressure to specialize earlier than in a smaller town like us, where we're like, hey, look, we need kids to be playing 3 sports, not only to benefit for their athleticism. Coach Frichty's had an awesome thing. He said to create more memories for kids. He goes, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Create more memories.
Yeah.
But in a smaller town, you need athletes to play multiple sports to have well-rounded teams, So you were a multi-sport athlete. Did you play 2 or 3?
3.
3, wrestling, football,
Track.
and track. Yeah. Talking about speed.
By the way, I was never coached in track. Never. There's none of the things I'm talking to you about were ever explained to me. I was just kind of left to my own devices and said, just going out there. So I didn't know how to, I could spend an hour just on the track block start, just how to get out of the blocks effectively, because it's 5% of the race. And most coaches don't spend much time with that one. So as soon as you get out of the blocks, depending on where you're at, you're in trouble. So we break that whole thing down. But going back to multi-sport athletes, I'm a huge proponent of multi-sport athletes. Most coaches at Division I want to see a multi-sport athlete. The reason being is that a single sport athlete tends to injure themselves more frequently because they're doing the same repetitive motions and activities. And it's just natural, it's overused. It's like a car where it just runs through its oil after a while. It's like, I'm just beating this thing on. I got to change some things out. Got to change the oil. Changing oil is like changing seasons. So go change seasons. Plus, it takes your mind away from that. So if you're a basketball kid, because I had some friends of mine who their kids and nephews, the same thing, like get them out of it. So playing different sports not only creates memories, but it creates opportunities for your body to recover from maybe your sport that you love the most. You need that. Plus, also creates that want to get back to it. So that drive, because after a while, it just gets stale. So go do something different. But even Division I coaches, when they are out, they say the 2-sport, 3-sport athlete are better athletes than a single sport athlete is. Even though they might be great for a while in their middle school years or high school years, that multi-sport athlete just has something about them. So we are recruiting those. And I've listened to coaches talk about this. I'm at a Division II institution. There's a lot of the coaches that are out recruiting. They're recruiting multi-sport athletes. So that's going to be key. When I was a teacher and a coach I was a teacher at one school district, and then I was coaching at Creek-Durham Hall, which is a private school up in Minneapolis. And the athletes that were coming out, one of them ended up going, he got a full ride to the Badgers, was a running back. He was a 10'5", 10'6" kid, could fly. He was out for track. He was doing sprints. He was doing long jump. Just one day he said, can I do a long jump? And it was at U of M meet. We went over there and I said, do you have any steps? What are steps? So we ran them back. He doesn't know what that is, but he ran them back. We turned around. He kept messing up, and I just made a quick adjustment. He runs and jumps 23 feet. That's amazing to be able to run in this jump. He had never really done it before. He had some of those athletes, but he was one of those kids that was doing multiple sports. Another kid had a full ride to South Dakota State, and he came out for high jump, and he said, Coach, can I try this? He jumped 5'4". He's a 6'1" kid. Jumped 5'4", which is not real high, but he jumped 5'4". And I said, well, I can work with that. At the end of the year, he went to state meet. He's jumping 6'8". Wow. So talking about the ability for a multi-sport athlete is that we were able to make some changes, and it created some opportunities. Do more sports than one. And if a parent or a coach, let me just tell you this, and this is nothing they said. If a coach is telling you that you have to do their sport year round, they are basically being egocentric and self-serving, because all they want is your time to make themselves better. If they truly are interested in you, they are going to tell you to go do something else. And I have been around sports for a long, long time, many different states, Colorado, Texas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and every single coach who's worth their grain of salt will say, do more sports than just the one year.
There.
Yeah.
There you go. Right? I mean, not that most of the kids on here are, so,
Yeah.
but it's just, and then play them as long as you can, right? As long as you can. As long as you can. It's not like when you get into middle school, you got to pick, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll end up starting to select the ones, because it gets harder. There's some cuts that will start to occur, different sports, but just because you got cut, let's say, for example, doesn't mean you can't come back. The next year, just got to find out what it is that you need to get better at. But you also might find out that maybe that door closes and something else opens up, and you never realize that I think track is great, or vice versa. I run doing track, maybe I want to go do some baseball, or wrestling. I was a basketball player. Holman High School has one of the best wrestling programs in the state, and they year in, year out are going to team states. They have a number of kids that are going to the state tournament. But one of the things that their head coach does, he walks the halls and he just recruits kids who said they were in basketball, who may have gotten cut from basketball, says, I know you just got cut. I'm sorry that would happen to you, but I know you're a great athlete. Come and give this a try. And invariably, they just love it. So I would encourage you to, if a door closes during a season, go find out, is there another sport that I could try that I've never even tried before? Holman High School has a weightlifting club as well, and it's a varsity sport. I don't know if your school has it, but if they have something like that, go join that. Go get involved with that. And most coaches know that if there's a football, if they have football, go out for track. I mean, it's gonna help you a ton. Or if you're in hockey, because you're pushing sideways a lot, then getting going, you work these muscles here too. But running track is going to help you move a little bit differently and allow your body to recover. So you can use after hockey season, use track as more of a recovery type of athletic program. Even though you'll still probably do pretty well, but it gives you an opportunity to do something different. So.
Yeah, and you might find that you're creating more opportunities for yourself. You might find that you're most gifted. We'll use track for an example. Baseball those would be conflicting seasons. Yeah. You might have a passion. Your passion sport, like for me, my passion sport was football, but I was probably most gifted at baseball. Okay, and if I hadn't played those sports, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, very true.
It could create opportunities for you. If you play collegiately, awesome. Most kids won't play collegiately. I hope that you guys strive for that and you want that. But
I'm gonna go back to two things you said, Brandon, because you said one of the things that Brandon hit on was if you're in middle school, do as many sports as you can. If you're in elementary school and there's a whole bunch of things available to try as many out as you can. That's going to be key. If you're in high school, your career is coming to an end possibly because the data is out there that shows that the majority of kids are not going on to play college athletics. So create those memories that Carl talked about. But stick with your sport all the way through. You will never regret it. And I can say this for all the 30 years or so that I've been a coach, is that the students I've talked to who either quit or decided, I want to go get a job or those kinds of things. And I understand finances and those kinds of things that might be happening, but they've always regretted not finishing out their high school year in their athletics. And I encourage you to find the sport that you have a lot of passion about, do it. And have a ball doing it. Part of that fit principle as well is, making sure that frequency, laugh every day. Find something to be joyful every day. Intensity, great belly laugh. Belly laugh somewhere. Find something that just cracks you up, whether it's a friend that cracks you up in a positive way, book that you're looking up, something that's just fun online that you really enjoy that just makes you just break down inside. How much time is our minds, 90% of the things that we think about all day long are negative. And so that time is that as soon as it comes in, and scripture tells us, take every negative thought captive. Well, be careful because those are attacks that we all go through. We always tell ourselves, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. The reality is we can do more than we think. And then as far as that duration stuff, is just find numerous different ways to get involved with other people's lives as well. Bring some joy to somebody else because that will bring joy back to yourself. And those key elements make life fun. Because if a stressed athlete is someone who does not perform well. The more stress you have, the less well you do in performance. So finding outlets to get away from it, and that's going to be key.
So with your negative, we're in a pandemic right now, and a lot of the news you see, everything right now, it just seems to be a little geared toward negative thoughts. And we're kind of seeing this as an opportunity for kids to grow, whether it be physically, mentally, in the program. Do you think there's opportunity, or what kind of positives do you see in the pandemic and coming out of it?
Yeah. So I'll keep using this FIT principle because I think it's important to start imprinting in you the things you need to do. So what this pandemic is doing is making us think differently. And we have to look at different opportunities. Like right now, first of all, I want to commend you for being on this and listening to all of us blathering on, but we hope we're giving you some value here. But in the FIT principle now, a frequency is normally we'd be out seeing our friends in the schools and in our clubs and with our coaches. We're not able to do that. So the frequency right now is a lot of times just limited to what we can have on screen. Reach out to somebody, reach out to a couple, do your own little Zoom or do whatever you all want to do. Find a platform, maybe even after this, find 2 or 3 people that are on this thread, contact them and say, hey, let's discuss what we just heard. What are we going to put together here that makes sense to me? How can I use this? Yeah, I'm listening to the 17-year-old, but I'm only 7 or 8 or 9. How can this relate to me? What wisdom can you give back down to me? So pour it into others, because we are by nature relationship oriented in our life. We have a relationship with our spouses and our friends that we have right now with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He wants that relationship with us. We are meant for relationships. So in this pandemic, that means you got to go outside your comfort zone a little bit, because if you stay within your own 4 walls, don't reach out to anybody, that's when that negativity starts to take over. Intensity, maybe it's a person, 1 or 2 people a week, maybe it's 2 or 3 a day, depending on who you are. But reach out to people. Reach out to someone you didn't realize that needed to be reached out to. And say, I haven't talked to so-and-so for a long time. Reach out to them. Hey, Joe, how's it going? Hey, Jane, how's it going? What's going on in your world? Maybe that day they're praying, Lord, I just feel so isolated. I wish I had a friend. And all of a sudden, you are the answer to that person's prayer. So reach out to that. So frequency, intensity, what you're gonna do, time. Most people, we say this as parents, but how do kids define love? T-I-M-E, time. How much time do I spend with my kids at the time? Right now, you might not have as much time to be face-to-face, but use these opportunities to jump online. And then duration is just this, how many different ways. This is so old school, I think some of you are not even gonna be able to figure it out. Like what? Go get some envelopes and some cards and an address, write a little note, lick it, stamp it, send it out. That will get way more heartfeltness by someone who receives it than a reach out by a text or reach out by a Zoom. Sending somebody, because that means you had to actually take some time out of your day to pour into someone else and just sends a quick note to them. Maybe it's something, hey Joe, I see that you've been on these Zooms a couple different times. I know you're gonna get stronger, I know you're gonna get faster, and then whoever you are. Especially if you're older, these younger athletes, like they hold you up as idols. You reaching down to them will just make their day. At the same time, as you go forward, as you go from 7 years old to 17, remember that and do the same thing back.
Awesome. That is incredible.
It is.
Incredible advice, right?
It is. The anti-bully formula right there.
Yeah.
The anti-bully formula. Okay,
Yeah.
we should have none of that going on in any of our sporting communities, certainly not here. But take that wisdom that Ray just shared, all of it. I think that's probably a good spot to wrap it up, unless you got something like you were pressing to share. I know you were up.
Just at the, I was going to do something. Just that, I wore the shirt on purpose. Brandon has Rogue stuff around here all the time, so I had this at home. One of the things I love about Rogue is that, one, they make great equipment, but there's also, it creates a community. And I know Brandon is trying to create this community, making sure that you understand that you're a part of this community. Rogue also means doing something outside the box, doing something different, and don't always stay in tune with what everybody else is doing. If you do things differently more often than someone else, you're going to rise above and get better. And the last piece I wanted to talk about in the FIT principle, we talked about the spiritual side, nutrition side, the resistance training side, but also is that social side I was talking about, making sure. The last one is just your emotional side. The FIT principle fits that too. What are you doing on a daily basis to make your mind better? What are you pouring into? What's your frequency on the things that you are looking up to make your intellect and your emotion better? So it's not just your emotion, but your intellect. How do I get smarter? So some of the things we talked about today, you can go online and Google some things on speed development, find some things. maybe say, hey, Coach Brandon, this is what I found. What do you think? Send it to him. He can tell you, here's the positive, here's some of the things that we can use. Then also looking at the intensity is just making sure that you're finding good things. Chop Wood, Carry Water is a book that all of you could read.
We just finished it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So then you got to find your next book, but things like that to fill your mind with. Then as you look at that intensity, if I read one book, maybe I can read 2 or 3. There was a little sign in our neighborhood, and this was so cool. Out in the sign, the parent wrote, my son just read 100 books. I think that's great. I mean, that's that type of intensity and that time. And then duration is finding all kinds of different avenues for you to develop your intellect and beyond just school stuff, but also the emotional. How can I get better as a person? And I'll always go back lastly to this is get in the Bible. And then if you don't know what that means, if you read something you don't know, you got coaches right here who can help you out.
Awesome. Well, Mijo, Dr. Ray, Dr. Shamid, I tell you what, man, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Time,
Thank
your
you.
wisdom.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And good.
Awesome.
Let's take this and let's all build on it. You know, when Ryan and I are inviting these special guests to come in and talk, we're soaking that stuff in too. We're not just saying, told you so. We're going, oh yeah,
You know,
hey, that's good. And we're growing too. Never stop. Don't just go through life. Make sure you're growing through your life. Okay. So hope you enjoyed another great Sunday special guest, faith and leadership talk. And we'll have another line run up next Sunday. And go invite somebody to be a part of this. Okay. This is going to be more prolonged than we expected. And just like Dr. Ray was saying, you could go serve somebody else, go invite somebody else, go make an impact in somebody else's life. And it might be inviting them to be part of this. So we can have conversations like this together. Okay, so have a great rest of your Sunday. Be outside, enjoy the nice weather. If it's nice, go fishing, go hunting. Hopefully you watched Cinderella Man. Awesome movie last night. I watched it with my wife. Very relevant. But have a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for hanging out.
see you tomorrow, kids.
Yep, see you tomorrow.